is my name is Scott Berry. Those of you who know me, Applecore Designs. I've just worked out that next year is 30 years of the company, so next February. Out of that time, 25 years of that has been in the construction sector, primarily with ArchiCAD. So those of you that know me through the industry and the company, we're involved with ArchiCAD up until September 21. What this sort of webinar is about, it's very informal. We used to do a lot of CPD around CIAT and RIBA, all on different aspects of model-based design. And this one today with Oliver from Joe's Blooms is very informal. We're just trying to give you sort of half an hour, 40 minutes overview of what the BMG tool can do for you. And I'll also give you a background of how I've got to this stage as well. I think it's important to work out where we are and how this can help. As I say, very, very informal. The tool will be demonstrated by Oliver, but I just wanted to give you a bit of background on my thoughts and the opportunities for you, primarily as building designers, architects, technologists. Speaking to my peers over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, also looking at some private work that I've been looking at. It's very much obviously very topical at the moment. So as we go through, hopefully you'll relate to that, and also you'll be able to see what Joe's Blooms with Oliver can do for you as well. So from my perspective, looking at the overview of the clients we have, and also, as I say, speaking to long-standing clients that go back many years about what they're looking to do with biodiversity, I think it's a really good opportunity sort of for designers. Primarily with what we're showing today, you've already got a familiarity with digital evaluation tools. So, you know, going back to my days with design tools, whether that's ArchiCAD, whether that's Revit, Vectorworks, you're all very similar. You'll understand how digital tools work. And this is what we're showing you will be an online tool, so you'll be able to see what it can do for you. You're very much at the forefront of the design, so your creativity and innovation in how you can bring biodiversity into your design. Lead architects have always had you know, those sort of priorities in mind, and I think that's important going forward, so you have control. Educating clients and stakeholders on the biodiversity value, something that they probably need to understand and aware of it going forward. And we put here serving as the competent person. We're talking today on small site metrics, so we actually see you as the competent person. So whether that's something you need to maybe look at and pushing up some of the online free courses that can be done, and I'll show you an article that we've put together that allow you to do that. Be honest, if I can do it, you can, because although I've got a landscape architecture background, which has come into obviously into helping me in this, then you know, competent person is all is required. So some really good opportunities there. The small site metric, SSM as the abbreviation, is for small sites from 1 to 9 houses up to land of 1 hectare. It also is for less than, well, half a hectare for a number of houses where they're unknown. So if you don't know the scheme initially, covers commercial buildings under 1,000 square meters or on land smaller than 1 hectare. And you don't need a qualified ecologist for the small site metric, but he does require a competent person. So last couple of months I've been working with Oliver, and I've set up a couple of articles. I've shared my whole screen here, so you'll see it's let me see if I can set this up. So if I actually just click on this one here, we set up an article on our Applecore designs.co.uk website. So what qualifies as a small site, the criteria using the SSM, the flexibility, the guidelines. So just some information there that is quite useful for you. And just coming back out of that, if I go into the competent person, excuse me, this is where the small site biodiversity metric comes in. So key capabilities, understanding the small site biodiversity metric, the pathways to competence. So we've worked on here. These are all free based on duration, really. So you've got short courses, 1 to 5 hours. So that could be anything from coastal environments, neighbourhood nature, and then more involved sort of 12 to 24-hour courses where you can, look at ecosystems. So not too onerous. There's information that's out there that you can utilise, but this is something I've been looking at. So as a competent person, this is the sort of information that you would need to obviously get to do a bit of research on. So that could be somebody in your design team. I mean, we had clients that were single sole practitioners, partnerships, or you have teams of between 3 and 10 people. You may allocate somebody in there who might be the person that's going to be your, the person in the team to actually run the tool. Or obviously in the bigger practices, you have maybe you'll be dealing with much bigger sites, so you will need an ecologist. But this is for as I say, for the small sites. So I'm just going to pass you over to Joe's Blooms and Oliver. We tested this yesterday, so hopefully it's just fine. I've just got to share him out and he'll share his screen. So, and you'll come back to me after his presentation. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, so hopefully everybody else can.
Superb. And can people see my screen as well?
We can see your screen. One thing to mention, Oliver, which I didn't mention right at the beginning, is that if anybody have got any specific questions as we go along, what we'll do is we'll have a look at the chat. But if there's anything that's a frequently asked question, we'll go out after the presentation and we can go out and put a little blog item together or a Q&A that we can help everybody. So, obviously, if you go through your main presentation, and then we can follow on from there. So thank you.
No, thank you so much, Scott, and thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. It's a real pleasure. Huge thanks to Scott and the Applecore team, because it is it's great to be able to work with the sector and with yourselves to basically help simplify the entire BNG process. What I'll do a very quick introduction to myself and the company, and then we'll just go through a very speedy tour through the tool itself. So Joe's Blooms was founded a few years ago when we saw the biodiversity net gain rules were coming. Our view was that BNG, extremely laudable, wonderful to see new policies to promote nature restoration and enhancement, but that the biodiversity net gain rules themselves were, shall we just say, a little bit complicated and not necessarily the most accessible things in the world. What we did was we thought that there would be, especially for small sites, as Scott mentioned, appetite for a tool which basically takes you by the hand and guides you through the entire BNG process. So worked very closely with DEFRA and Natural England and others to make sure that the tool was fully compliant and recommended best practice. And since then, we've been working with a number of partners, including the planning portal, and indeed, very pleased to say, we've been cited by local authorities around the country, by Natural England on their blogs and others as examples of good practice. So we're really pleased that as BNG has gone live over the last few months, we have managed to find that niche, as it were, and be able to provide a service which seems to be going down extremely well, both for developers, architects such as yourselves, but also with the public authorities. So the idea of Joe's Blooms is the biodiversity net gain tool, which allows you to start from beginning to end. And what it does is it provides you with all the tools and facilities that you need to be competent, but does not assume any prior knowledge or experience. So the slightly facetious mission statement we gave ourselves was we wanted it to be that people could arrive not knowing how to spell BNG, but we could complete everything that they need. And exactly as Scott said in his introduction, doing so in a way which is more intuitive, but also empowers you to find solutions which work and fits in with the design of your project, and at the same time allows you to engage effectively with the clients and stakeholders. So what I'll do is I'll just very quickly now begin the demonstration. You'll see that we have the whole Joe's Blooms process is set out in 8 stages, each made up of separate little individual tasks. And the idea is that we can guarantee that you have done everything that you need to do in order to fully comply with BNG both in terms of the requirements of the Environment Act, but also in terms of best practice. So we've based it on things like SIEM guidance and others. And the idea is that once you've completed all these different stages, you can download a completed metric sheet, maps, and a biodiversity game plan at the end. So I'm just going to start by pressing continue. And you'll see that the way we've designed it is very similar to a gov.uk page. In part, that's because a senior member of our team is a former head of gov.uk. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the idea is that you, rather than it all being, the scary spreadsheet, as it were, and trying to understand what's where, instead we just break it down to bite-sized chunks. Every page has a little question mark button on it, which allows you to call up any, ask for information if you're not sure. But we just start off by asking you to provide a postcode. You can also provide a grid reference, or indeed, if you don't have either, you can just simply click on the link here and drop a pin in the map of the UK. And what we do is we've partnered up with Ordnance Survey, so we'll then load up the relevant map data. It's worth saying that fundamentally at its heart, BNG is all about areas and lengths. So what we've done is by partnering with Ordnance Survey, we've got a way of being able to derive areas and lengths for the BNG metric in a way that local authorities, Natural England and others really like and approve. So I'm just going to draw a pin in here, say we're building a site there. And then we start asking what type of development you're building. I should say that this stage, this is all free. We have not asked for any money at this stage. This is all a per gratis service, this first part. And the reason for this is that we're determining whether or not you are genuinely a small site. So under the rules, small sites are defined under a range of criteria. One of those being the use case. And depending on what sort of development it is, there'll be specific questions that you have to answer. So if we click, for example, that we're building a dwelling house and press continue, a specific question will come up relating to dwelling houses. And this is all about determining if you are genuinely a small site. If we say over 9 houses, for example, it will say, we're terribly sorry, we're not able to help. But if you choose 1 to 9, you can proceed. And you see what we're doing here. It's just to make sure that we can genuinely help you through that process and determine whether or not you are able to use the small site metric. We look up your local planning authority, and we have information on every local planning authority's BNG requirements that go above and beyond the statutory framework. So the idea here is that we're making sure that we can also, as well as making sure we guide you through the law and all the requirements there, we can also help guide you through the local requirements on top of that. We then come on to drawing the red line boundary. I won't dwell too much on this, other than to say we're very keen to make sure that it's as easy as possible for you to draw the red line. This is just the same as it would be in your site plan or any other document. And we have all the sorts of tools that you would expect. So the ability to simply click and draw your red line. And we try to make it as user-friendly as possible, so highly editable so that you can adjust it very, very easily, adding new parts onto it. We've also added undo and redo features as well. So if you make a mistake, there's no harm, no foul. And we have selecting OS features as well. So this is baseline data, which allows you to just click and then expand it that way. So literally with 2 clicks, you can draw the red line boundary extremely well. So we just press continue there. We then guide you through European protected species. So these are very rare species that are sometimes found on sites. We actually have a little questionnaire here, which you can use. And this is based on the pre-existing planning portal reasonableness test on whether or not such species are on your site. Should only take a couple of minutes if you wish to do it. But we'll just say here that no, there are no protected species. And now magic starts to happen. So what we've done is you can see in the middle, we have our red line. We have the orange line is 500 meters away from the red line. And the purple are priority or designated habitats. So under the rules, you're not allowed to use a small site if such habitats are within the red line boundary. So if you can imagine that we did have a site where the purple was within the red line, we would again say, we're terribly sorry, we can't help you. If it is like it is here, a sort of sandwich effect, nothing in the red line, but that is within the orange line, we can say you can use our tool. You asked a small site, that's excellent. However, just be aware, we'll be recording all information on these different priority habitats and putting that into the Excel sheet as well. So that's all automatically done. And if there's nothing within the 500 meters, you just get a very nice and satisfying big green tick. What we then do is we're now saying that we're pretty sure you are a small site, and we guide you through the whole question of competent person, exactly as Scott talked about before. Scott's already referred to a number of amazing free resources which allow you to demonstrate your competence. But again, if you use the question mark button here, if you're ever not sure, we can provide you immediately with tools and online things which allow you to demonstrate your competence. I am extremely confident that everyone on this call, by virtue of the sector and industry, would be deemed competent. It is a very broad definition which Natural England has adopted here, but they've explicitly stated that they expect developers and architects to automatically be defined as competent. And then we just allow people to edit it. If there's anything you want to change, you are very much the boss and you can change things. And at this stage, we would then provide you with a payment page. So we would now have calculated, we would now worked out whether or not you are able to use our tool. You're able to class yourself as a small site. And this is the point where we would say this would be the fee for the use of the tool. I can talk more about the pricing structure at the end if people have questions, but just to say that in the overwhelming majority of cases, I'd say about 90–95% of all of our customers, the cost point is $495 inclusive of VAT for use of the tool. It can be slightly higher if the site is particularly complicated and large and we have to capture more information. But also at the same time, what we can do is we also offer a premium service where if you want to, you can actually ask for one of our senior members of our team to, as it were, take control, manage the whole process, making sure everything's filled in correctly and accurately. And that premium service is for $1,250 inclusive VAT. But as I say, the vast majority of our customers prefer to use it on a DIY basis, and the $495 is the marker there. So we then proceed and we press continue. And we go on to the next stage, which is all about stakeholder engagement. So this is about promoting best practice, guiding you through the process. We look up which sort of local bodies the government would like you to talk to. We'll even draft the email for you to send to them as well, so that just makes life that much easier. Local nature recovery strategies. The first one went live as of this morning in the west of England. We'll be adding that information into this tool. So there's nothing in Surrey in this example, but as they do go live, we'll be providing information on what that means for your site and what factors you need to take into consideration. Habitat degradation. So has there been harm to habitats, trees brought down, plants uprooted or the like on your site? It doesn't matter if if degradation has happened, yes or no. Either answer is acceptable. We'll guide you through what to do. But again, I'll just click on the question mark here and demonstrate that we actually guide you through every single step of this process, explaining different concepts, making sure that you have tools to hand. If you want historic imagery, we can actually link you up with historic imagery on Google Earth going back to the 1980s. So we make sure you have everything that you need there. And then we just do the GDPR thing and ask if you don't mind us sharing ecological data with the public bodies. And now we draw in the on-site habitat. So this is where we ask you to basically take your map and draw in the different parcels. So for example, if there's an area of grass, draw that in. If there's an area of wooded area, to draw that in as well. So what we'll just do is we'll just very quickly click here. We have developed this section with UK Hab, which is the organisation which came up with all the different habitat designations. And we designed it, again, as Scott said, to empower you to make sure that you can be the competent person and correctly select the habitat. We know that this is probably the most intimidating part of the whole BNG process. How do you choose what the right habitat is for a given site or given parcel? And the idea here is that you can simply click on the photo, which looks most like what parcel you're currently considering. And then again, just click on what looks most familiar. There's a little description that comes up. But you can also use a habitat helper, which I'm just going to click on here. And what this does is it provides a really simple set of yes/no questions that allow you to work out what the habitat type is. So if I say that I want to go in here and I'm interested in grassland, but I want to know what habitat to select, all I need to do is select this. And it asks a set of basic questions. So for starters, is it at least 25 to 100% grass covered? Yes, it is. That's good. Is it a baseline? Yes, it is. Is it a private garden? Now, if I clicked yes here, it would tell me probably to select the vegetated garden option. I'll say no here because it's not a garden in this instance. Okay, so less than 9 species of plant per meter squared. So this is a key point. Because it's a small site metric, we don't need to know about specific types of species. We don't need to know about the names of trees or whatever, anything like that. All we need to know is like, are there lots of different things basically on the site? It's that level of question, use case and basic criteria. And in fact, you can even click I don't know, at which point it'll go, right, does it look more like option A or does it look more like option B? We'll say it looks more like option B in this instance, and it'll go, right, you're looking at grassland, modified grassland. And in fact, we can get a little info sheet as well if we wanted to telling us all the different bits of information straight away. So you can just see, by answering just a set of very quick questions, you can say, okay, this is modified grassland. That's the habitat in question. And then you just simply have to draw in where the habitat is on your site. You can, again, use that either by drawing it out that way or using OS features to very quickly draw out where it is. And the information on how big it is provided over there. So we'll say that's our grassland. We'll be invited to upload a photo now of that grassland. And then you just continue repeating the process until you have filled in your entire site. Again, you could use a habitat helper to select the right type of tree. As it happens, I know this is other woodland mixed. We'll just fill that all in here. The symbology, by the way, is UK HAB symbology. So when it all comes together in a maps, it's a way that everyone likes and is everyone's happy with. And we just confirm that you've filled in your entire red line, and then we can proceed. The next stage is just basically administrative details. So tell us about the person who is putting in the application, the person who's been to the site, etc. With your blessing, I'm just going to put placeholder XXX here in now, just to get through this. But you can just see what we're doing is making sure that you can just enter into the information. We would use this to fill in all the different parts of the documentation, so both the metric sheet and also biodiversity gain plan, making sure the information is consistently filled in throughout. Again, the question mark, if you're not sure about any specific term, you can use a question mark and it will just explain it all to you. And you've got little quality of life things where you can just tick and you can just copy over the data if applicable. So we'll just fill this in here. Say there was a competent person who filled it in. When did the site survey take place? So we just press the pick the date we went to the site and took the photos. Any constraints? Now, ideally, the answer is none. But if, for example, it was winter and the site was restrictive, hard to get to the site, this is where you put that information in. Again, the question mark provides you a little guide on the sorts of things that they might want you to consider here. Type of planning application. So we'll just say full planning consent, but it's all what you would expect from the planning portal. Planning application reference number. It can be left blank if you don't have one yet. And also the master plan reference number can be left blank if you don't have one yet. And now we pop in the intended works. So this is where we draw in. We drew in previously what was currently on the site. We're now going to draw in what is that we're planning to build or change as a result of a development. So we'll start by going in here. It's a very similar process to what we had before, except what we do is we bring up to the top the habitats which are most likely to be used in any intended work or developed land. So the top one, developed land sealed surface, is what you'd use for buildings. This one is what you'd use for gravel drives. You get the idea. So I'm just going to draw in a building here. Click continue, and return here. I should have also pointed out that we have an option to upload site plans as well. So you could do this any stage when you're doing a map. So if you have habitat plans already drawn out or a red line plan, you can simply upload a pre-existing diagram. With apologies to Scott and everyone, I don't actually have a site plan which is appropriate to this one, but I'll just drop in one from a previous project, which will demonstrate the point, I think, just as well. So it's possible to move the plan in, highly adjustable. You have measuring tools to make sure we get to the right scale, and you can adjust it to make sure that it's all correct. I'm just going to do this at a little bit of speed, but just draw in here just to demonstrate the use case. And what we'll do is we'll just say we'll just draw in here, use this to trace over the intended work. So this is where we draw in our building. So you can just see design just to make sure it all aligns nicely with what you've previously drawn. I'm doing it ever so slightly at pace, but again, it's all possible to edit it. So you can adjust really, really simply and then use the various tools that we have just so you can move things around and get things exactly correct. So we'll say that's our building. And obviously you'd keep adding different parts in to make it complete, but I think that demonstrates the core concept. Marking losses, were there any hedgerow or trees or the like on the site? This is where you would highlight them for deletion if they were going to be destroyed as a result of development. Obviously, we don't have that in our demo right now, but if anyone's interested, more than happy to demo this later on and to demonstrate how this go forward. And then we go on to the BNG Solution Finder. So this is actually where the magic happens. So what we've done is we've recreated the entire metric in code, and it now tells you the key information. So that house is going to lower the baseline value by 9.39%. In this local authority, we need to get a 10% uplift. Obviously, some local authorities are starting to introduce higher numbers, and we update that. So if you were, for example, in Guildford, this will be 20%. And also the trading rules, which mean that, you know, for certain habitats, you're going to have to make sure that your solution, your mix, includes at least part of these solutions from these types of habitats in order to satisfy it. And again, you have a learn more thing here, which just explains to you how that works. But what we do is we make sure that there's always a solution for a site, and there's 3 steps to that. Step 1 is enhancement, which is where we set out how you can take what's currently on your site and improve it. Creation is when you put in something brand new on the site, so think ponds or new trees or the like. And offsite is when you go completely offsite and effectively you pay someone to secure the 10% uplift for you, and we can actually digitize that entire process as well. So very quickly, I'll just demonstrate enhancement. We have 2 habitat parcels to play with, the woodland and the grassland. And if you just click on the option, you can see we have all the different things that you can do, a menu of options. And these are things that you can do which are legal and permitted under the metric. So the idea is that rather than having to wonder, can you do this? Is it permitted? Will it result in an error code? All that we show here are things that are allowed. So, for example, we can say take the grassland and enhance it to modify grassland good condition. And we have a little bit of information about what sort of uplift that would secure, what trading rules it would satisfy. But what we could do is we can just say, let's enhance some of the sites to good condition. Takes us back here. And then we can just simply draw in what section of the site we want to enhance. In fact, we can change this as well. I'm just going to extend this over the red line. You'll see why in a second. I'll do that. And then it just cuts it perfectly to the red line as well, making sure that it's all nicely done and correctly proportioned. And you can see we've made something of an impact. So now we have gone from a negative percentage to a positive 0.13. Not good enough, but some progress. And we satisfy the trading rules. So now the idea is that you can keep going and find solutions that work. And I just want to echo again and repeat again what Scott said, which is the idea of this page is that it empowers you to find a solution which works well for your design, a solution which works well for the client, and also allows you to just engage with stakeholders so you can, in real time, experiment with different options. So, for example, go, well, let's look at the woodland. Let's enhance the entirety of that woodland at the bottom. Sure enough, that immediately gets us over the 10%. We're in a very good place there. But the client may go, I'm not prepared to enhance the woodland for 30 years and undertake that responsibility. Not a problem in the slightest. You just simply press the X button there, delete it, and you go back a step. And then you can try different options. So, for example, let's try other neutral grassland, which is something analogous to a wildflower meadow. We could go back onto here, and instead we could just say, you know, they're happy to do a wildflower meadow in this section over here. I'll just draw out a little shape along here. And you see that's actually secured a 10% uplift via different means. This option may be one that they're much more happy with. I'll just very quickly touch on creation. So this is where you can add in brand new habitats. For example, trees, which can usually result in a bit of uplift. So I'll just add a couple of trees here. It's worth saying that this is me just demonstrating the functionality. They don't actually like you doing trees in private gardens, but hopefully it nonetheless demonstrates it. Just a couple of clicks, add a couple of trees in here. Click continue, and you see that's also made an uplift. Now, if you are struggling and you can't do it, we've actually partnered with another company called BNGX. And what this means is that if you just need to get that uplift and you're really struggling, you can simply click on the yellow button. You'll be directed over to a separate website where you can you'll be auto-generated an Excel sheet with the work you've done so far. You simply click and drag the Excel sheet onto the BNGX platform, and you'll be given a selection of options for how to purchase these units. And I would just also say, they've designed it so that you can buy exactly the quantum you need. So it's not the case you have to buy extra or anything like that. If you just need 0.1 or 0.013 units, they will find that for you. And you can either buy a certificate to show that you have pre-purchased, you've gone and found units in the market, or you could buy the units outright. If you do so, it's a transaction that takes seconds. Pro forma legals are all done. So the whole process of securing those offsites are just done immediately. So we'll just click continue there because we've done it on site in this instance. And then we go on to the final step where simply we provide a description of how you've sought to minimize habitats. We have a little guide here which gives you sort of ideas on language. Again, just trying to make sure that you have all the kind of resources you need to write the sort of things your local planning authority want to see. Did you use local nature recovery strategies? No, we didn't. But as these are added, we'll be automating this page to help guide you how to answer this. Is it significant or not? This is a subjective decision. We would probably argue that in certain instances it will probably be no for a small site, although as local authorities adapt and come up to their own conclusions of whether or not something's significant, that will probably change. Do you have a habitat management monitoring plan? Again, we can help you with the production of that if that is required. Did you use the habitat gains for previous reasons? So this is just confirming you're not double dipping, as it were. Degradation. So you'll recall the degradation questions we had at the beginning. If there was degradation, this is where you just specify exactly what degradations took place, when they took place, and how you've accommodated them. But just for the sake of this demo, I will skip through these questions and say that there was no degradation. Brief description of the development type. So we say new dwelling house. You can put in address. Again, you can actually put in a postcode here as well. That's just us filling in documentation. And then there's the local authority. You have the permission, your blessings to share data. As an aside, they tend to like it if you say yes. And then you're done. You'll see 3 buttons have lit up here at the bottom. Pressing any one of these will generate on our server the metric sheet, all filled in, all correct. Maps, pre and post development, all filled in with symbology and all done to the correct standards as set out in 2015 regulations. And your biodiversity gain plan, as if you downloaded it from DEFRA, but all filled in with the different values. And you just have to click on this and it'll auto-generate and be in your inbox in a couple of minutes. But also you can return to any of these steps. So you could jump back into Solution Finder, make changes. So for example, let's go and get rid of the modified grassland and then pop in the woodland enhancement. Come back, press the button again, new and updated metric. And this is the key thing that I hope we add some value on. And this will be my last point before I pass back to Scott and to everyone. We've designed this with the hope that it allows unlimited revisions and support for you to iterate and change your design. In part, that's because Biodiversity Net Gain is designed to be an iterative process and to go back and forth on things, both with the client and yourself and your own design and stakeholders, but also the local authority often will want to have their own input. If a local authority says they want changes, it's a matter of seconds just to log back in, make the changes they want, and then to reissue all the documentation to them in a matter of minutes. We never charge you again for using that function. You only ever pay us once and then unlimited revisions. And our hope is that by structuring it in this way, it's only ever one affordable payment for a unlimited use of a tool, unlimited revisions to a tool, constant iteration, and the ability to get BNG done to a highly satisfactory standard, but also on your terms. And at that step, I will stop my presentation. Thank you, everyone, very much indeed. And I'll pass back to Scott.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you for everybody. Hope you found that useful. It was a very sort of methodical process through. It's basically a step-by-step project wizard, as I've put here. A couple of things that I didn't mention in my first section. I mentioned that I've been in the industry for 30 years and the company. We've seen some sort of different, I suppose, mandates really that came through. I mean, I was introduced to model-based design back in 1995, so you had to guess how old I am. Seeing ArchiCAD on a Windows 95 machine, thinking this is how the industry is going to move, which it did. We then had the mandate for the BIM level 2 back in 2016. And then obviously this year, the biodiversity for small sites came in on the 2nd of April. The reason for putting sort of everybody together is that obviously we have, a client base that has used model-based systems as they're used to using technology. In the 3 years that we haven't been involved with ArchiCAD, I've been doing some development work on existing buildings, but we were looking and are looking currently on a new site with up to 8 dwellings. So I've been using the tool in anger over the last 6 months. As is mentioned there, the ultimate, the revision control about you can keep going back and changing things and trying things out is really, really good. So we all know how model systems work. You send it out to a client wants to change it, they want to modify something, and you end up having to update it all. The systems tend to automate that. Your drawings that you output, obviously within here as well, you'll be able to go in and do your project changes, and it will give you your results. With mine as well, in that first phase where Oliver talked about the free sort of 10-step process, that was really good. We actually found a ancient woodland within 500 meters of the site. So we were progressing the scheme based on that information we were given. So just reflecting on going back to the tool, step-by-step project wizard, intuitive interface. You can return to the project at any time to make the unlimited revisions. So you might get some feedback in the design, like I said, or updates from the planning authority. The documents for submission. So the information that you get to actually go with your plan application. So the completed small site metric. So the value, also outlining how you have achieved the net gain. The habitat assessments at post development, ordnance survey information at pre and post development plans, and also the comparisons of the site, ecological state before and after for the scheme. So it just gives you all the documentation that you need to forward that through with your plan application. The compliance, we're trying to get involved to taking on this role as a company rather than using an external consultant. The free initial assessment, it obviously applies. The pricing starts at $495, including the VAT. So I've done a quick calculation. That's $412.50. We actually have worked with Joe's Blooms to give it an introductory one for your first project. So the minimum payment for the first one will be $371.25 plus the VAT to give you all the tool that you need to do it. The maximum price would be the $995, so that's $829.17 plus the VAT. So those of you are interested in taking it further, having a look, say you've got the free initial assessment, you can put your project in there. It only asks you for the next stage when you're ready to hit the button. If you look at the link below, you've got I'm trying to do a tiny URL, so tinyurl.com/ADL-code. That gives you literally a simple form about five, who you are, what company you are, and it gives me a notification to say you're interested in a code. You get a unique code, and you can utilize that code on the first project to get it reduced down. So on a slightly bigger site, the most you pay $476.25 and $391.25. All I would say is once you've done the first one, and you may need to involve Oliver or going forward on the first one, or we can speak to you about that. Once you've done the first one, the feedback, you should be able to, you're up and running. So it's who you allocate in the office to do the work on this side of the project. But I'd feel, looking at the industry as a whole, looking at these mandates that have come and opportunities that have been available to be able to take the actual ownership of this, I think is quite a nice thing to do. And as I say, you're the forefront of the design with the clients and the stakeholders. So if you've got any questions, so it's not in the chat, it's in the Q&A. As we're going along, a couple of people have asked questions. More than happy to answer those. I'll send a copy of the slides separately to you all, so you've got the links as well. And also we'll get a video copy, be the raw one initially. So I've got a video copy of the presentation, and you can have a look at that. And we can give you the link to the Joe's Bloom site and the code. And obviously you can do that first initial assessment to see, if you've got a live project at the moment on it and you need to do this type of assessment, then at least it'll give you an indication of whether it can help you or not. So I'd like to thank you all for your time and appreciate it. And as I say, if you've got any questions in the Q&A, we'll keep the site open, the webinar open for a good couple of minutes. Thank you.